Chat. What's going on, guys? This is G Jensen, and it is time for another Friday Night Live. What is up? What is up? How's everybody doing? Goodness gracious, let me get that chair out of the way. Show that nice, big, beautiful trophy. Oh goodness, what is up? Apple's Heart, how you doing, man? What's up? Man, I've been out in the yard all day today, mowing and doing weed eating, doing stuff my teenagers were supposed to do yesterday. So they did a little bit, and I finished up and then did some more. Here it is 6.5 hours later, and I just got off the lawnmower. So, oh, I love kids. Anthony, what's going on? William Horwood, how you doing, man? Fishing is life. Stefan, how are y'all? Goodness, man, I want to talk about something a little bit later, but I learned something this week. It was flipping cool. It was really, to me, it was cool. But it's kind of, I spend a lot of time on the water anyway. So, traveling fisherman, what's up, man? You going to be ICAST again? I'm pretty sure. I know Westbrook's not going, which is who I went with last year. I got to get a hold of 13 and see if they're going. I heard they had some booth issues or something. Their booth got destroyed in shipping, so I don't. I got to figure all that out. So, but I haven't missed one in 14 or 15 years, so I probably will be down there. Robert Depole. I'm not going to pronounce it. Goodness gracious. I used to be really good at pronouncing people's names. Not anymore. Wow. All right. So as we get things rocking and rolling, I'd like to welcome everybody. Just so you know, I've got this whole episode ends up on my on my podcast. Oops, almost did a boo-boo. On a podcast, and I just basically download the audio to Anchor, and it blasts it out to a bunch of different podcasts. But just do a search for Fluke Master Fishing, and so that way you guys, while you're on the road and stuff, can listen to it. And if you are listening to it through my podcast, welcome. Goodness. Low key, the God says he's finally getting out on the North Craft tomorrow. You must be from up north. We don't see North Crafts down here for some reason. Reska, hello from Utah. Just got an SS-127 and getting it set up. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. My mom and dad are from Brigham City. I got a brother that lives up in the Cache Valley, up in Logan. So that's where my family is, or at least some of them, at least. So what is up? What is up? All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened this week while you guys jump on here. It's good to see everybody. Welcome anyway. But so it was the last 3 days, the fishing has literally sucked. Catching a lot of small little dinks and stuff like that, not really seeing a whole lot of fish. Just something was funky. 3 days ago, towards the end of the day, I was dragging a jig or a creature bait or something in about 10 and a half feet of water. And I caught a 20 and a half inch female that had a bloody tail. And I'm like, is she spawning, or is she not yet recovered from spawning? Well, 2-3 casts later, further down the way, I caught a male who was obviously spawning. You catch a male, he's peeing all over the place. And so for the last 2 days, one or two of the fish that I've caught, or that my buddy Michael had caught, has been peeing. It's been a male. And I'm like, it's the end of May. They shouldn't be spawning. So I did a little research, did some looking into it. And so we're so used to the last spawn here being April or early May at the latest. Well, come to find out, there's always another spawn, but deeper, because the water temperature is cooled down about 10 feet or whatever the depth is. They're always looking for mid 60s to 70. but the water's cooler. It's holding a little bit more oxygen, and you're getting enough light penetration for them to spawn deeper. And the deepest I've ever seen bass spawn was on Clark's Hill years ago when it was super clear, 16, 17 feet deep. So I know they spawn deep, but not this late. I don't know if it has something to do with the extended spring that we had or not, but I'm gonna chalk that one up here for a few years. Kind of pay attention and put it to and they're probably done spawning by now, but put it to use years from now when I see that situation again where the bite shouldn't be off, but it is. And I think the reason it was off is because they're scattered. When they go spawning, they pick their areas and they get away from everything else as much as they can, so they get scattered and harder to catch. So, see, Michael, there he is. He says he caught another spawner again today. So, but you're not sight fishing for them; you're just catching them. It's pretty cool. So, I don't know. I always like to learn something. It's the advantage of being on a lake that I know like my pillow, and I'm there every day, and so it's really cool to see the changes and learn how the bass move and do things like that. So, goodness. Brandon Huff says he just placed 7th out of 72 in a local tournament. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. And he ate my Star Crunch. Michael says, so Michael's been bringing me a Star Crunch every day. And because he knows that's my favorite Little Debbie, but I didn't show up today because I was at home doing chores. So he ate my Star Crunch. So, see, Todd, Todd says there's a few spawners still in Southern Illinois as well. See, and I expect them to be spawning a little bit later in Illinois than here. But this was a pretty substantial spawn to be catching as many as we're catching. Even though the bite's off and a little weird, but definitely it's just really cool. So, oh goodness. All right. One more month to join the Knucklehead tournaments and get a chance to be part of Team Fluke, or any of the other YouTubers' team. What the Knucklehead series is. It's $15 to enter. And even if you don't want to enter, donate $15, because what I'm going to do is, I'll explain what I'm going to do in a minute. So I've had 4 tournaments. This next month is my last one, my 4th one. We're going to do this every year, me and Chad Hoover and a bunch of other YouTubers and influencers. But we take the winners of each of those tournaments and they become Team Fluke Masters. So with me and those 4, we show up in October or November in Alabama, and we fish a championship for about $10,000. Now that $10,000 pot only gets divided between the 4 team members and not me. The money from the entries I'm going to take, and I've decided I'm going to get an Airbnb for the winners and for the team. So we're going to all stay in the same Airbnb. I'm also going to buy one of the things I decided to do at the beginning that I really know. Well, wait, I'm not going to mention it till the end of the next tournament. But I got a really cool surprise happening, and then I'm also going to start picking random people for prizes as my sponsors kick in. This year won't be quite as big as next year. We're just trying to get our feet wet, but it should be pretty cool. But it's called the Knucklehead Series. You sign up on Fishing Chaos under KBF. You go to the KBF and look for Knucklehead, or you can just search Knuckleheads, Knuck. Anyway, I can't remember how Chad spells it. I wish he would just spell it like every other American spells it. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and also my guide service is on Fishing Chaos. You look up Fluke Master Fishing or Fishing with Fluke Master, and you'll be able to find my guide service. And I guide the 1st through the 10th at a trophy lake that's right down the road. And I know it like the back of my hand. So it's going to be pretty fun. And right now the cost is only $300 a day. It is going to go up in about 2 or 3 months. So, Gene, who's on your team so far? So far I've got Jason Starley, and he'll be on here a little bit later on tonight. Is his name Cody or Corey? A young kid. Fishes out of a Bass Pro Shop kayak. And then this month's not over yet. We still got a few more days. And then next month. So there's only 2 people qualified so far. But yeah, like I think he's like 17 or 18 years old. Found out he's an Eagle Scout, which is really cool. I'm an Eagle Scout, so we have a little bit in common. And he won it last month. So let's see. All right. Let's jump into some Q&A. I need to get some guests on here. I just always am last minute. Oh crap! I've got Friday Night Live because I'm doing something. Fridays are my chore days and my catch up days and my edit days and everything else. So, Robert, you asked favorite crankbait for the fall, KVD or Rapala. I had to pick between the two. I usually am throwing a square bill KVD, but I have a history of throwing a Shad Rap number 5 a lot in the fall, and so between the two, but usually KVD 1.5 is the first thing I'm going to grab. Hey Gene, what's the bare minimum I should go for a starter kayak fishing small lakes? To be honest with you, I don't know how big you are rattle strap, but I always say go try them out. You know, kayakers are really cool. Most kayakers will let you paddle their kayaks out and mess around with them for a few minutes. But I'd set a budget $600. You know, $700. You can get a pretty decent kayak. It's not going to be your favorite one, but it'll float. It'll be safe. Get a comfortable PFD. Spend some extra money on a PFD, $120, $130 or more on a PFD. Don't get the mechanical ones, the automatic deploy ones. And the reason I say that is I don't trust my life to something mechanical. I mean, I'm the son of an engineer. I've got brothers who are engineers. I understand that whole world a lot more than I should. And I don't trust my life to something mechanical. So get you a good PFD that is the foam ones that's comfortable in a kayak. Then a good paddle. So an okay kayak, good PFD, and good paddle. So that's a good suggestion, Applin's Heart. Be-lat on this thing. That would be really cool. That would be really cool. I'd have to catch him when he's not fishing tournaments, which I haven't even paid attention to what they're doing this year. So, Flavio Forte says, Flavio Forte, my bad. He says, Gene, do you know if the front SS127 bow bucket fits no, it doesn't. It fits the SS107. So no, it doesn't. It's a foot shorter on the front and the back of the 107 than it is the 127, and the loss of, or it's 2 feet shorter, but the loss of that length is only in the front and the back, so not in the cockpit. So yeah, it's not the same. Favorite Texas big Texas. Let me try that again. Favorite Texas rig baits for lakes this time of the year. Rage bug. Going to a lake tomorrow, and I'm more of a river guy, but I'm gonna give it a try. Something I'm very proud of. I've been fishing a rage bug since it was a prototype. I've been friends with the guy that owns Rage Tail. Now, Rage Tail is not owned by Strike King; it's owned by Steve Parks. Strike King is just the distributor, but as far as I know, that's still the same. But anyway, so I've known Steve Parks for many, many years, and he brought me a gallon bag of Rage Bugs to an event years ago, and I went through that gallon bag in a week, probably a week and a half, and I fell in love with that thing. So yeah, that's my favorite. I'm fishing on a 4-aught hook, whether it doesn't matter what kind of hook it is, just fishing on a 4-aught. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you guys are giving that guy a lot of really good suggestions. A good comfortable seat, that kind of stuff. I always just say go test them out, but yeah, you got to get one with a comfortable seat. My first kayak was, I can't remember, a Perception Sport 12 foot. Cost me $600 at Dick's Sporting Goods 100 years ago. And it I paddled it and took it out on 2 trips and sold it. And I was a year and a half to 2 years before I got a Hobie. So I did not like that kayak. It hurt my back. And the reason is my butt was sitting on the kayak. One of those that your butt always gets wet. My butt was on the kayak and my feet were straight out in front of me and my back hurt all day long. So let's see. Emily Grace, what's going on? So the kayak fisher woman here. I also agree that the Bass Pro Shops kayak would be a good starter. Yeah, it is. The Ascend kayak is pretty decent. Just know that it's not super stable. You do something crazy stupid in it, you get into some crazy weather and stuff like that, it's a good chance it'll toss over. So tether everything that you can. If Damon was on here, he'd attest to that. His Ascend, I think he turtled it twice, once a year for the 2 years I knew him that he had it. He turtled it twice. I was about ready to give him my kayak. I felt so bad for him, but you just got to be careful with it. But he was on big water both times, so. Tweezy Bass Fishing Movement. What's you using to catch that 116.5-inch limit in the monthly? It's actually not the KBF monthly because I'm not fishing those, but I can't remember the name of that tournament. Anyway, so I got 116.5 inches. I have literally caught every single big fish this month on a Picasso tungsten football head jig. And the trailers have varied, but anywhere from some of my favorite trailers that I've been using are the Zoom Speed Craw. What's the other one? And a Zoom Menace, or no, a Rage Tail Menace are the two I've been using this month. So that's what I've been catching them on. So, and that's the biggest monthly limit that I've ever caught, but only by 1/4 of an inch. My biggest up to this point has been 116.25. So, let's see. How do I keep water from the paddle off of me? Serious question. Those dumb rubber thingies are worthless. You're going to get a little bit of water on you because, especially if you do a lot of high paddling. Yak Attack sells those replacement rings, and I can't remember what they're called, but the only ones that Yak Attack makes and sells are really, really good because they cup the water. So as the water comes down the handle, they cup it. The other thing is put your fist between that ring and your paddle blade, and keep it that distance. Keep it about a 4-inch distance from the ring to the paddle blade, and it's able to shed a little bit of water, and then the water comes down the handle, or down the rod, and hits that ring. But those Yak Attack ones are really, really good. Like I said, they're cupped, and so they catch the water and then they shed them off. But you'll still get a few drops on you, but not nearly as much as a regular ring. Rattle also, at the moment watching this, I'm trying to tie the FG knot. This knot will be the death of me. Oh, dude, I remember learning it. Oh my goodness. I feel my hair getting gray at 28. Yeah, it took me about 4 days, and not a constant practice, but I'd sit down a couple hours a day in front of the TV and really practice it. And then I was still making mistakes after that, but eventually I got it. Now I can look at it and say, that's wrong. And I can cut it off, and I don't really mess it up as often anymore, but you do have to practice it. But I tell you, once you learn the FG knot and how to connect, using it to connect fluoro to braid, it's awesome, man. I'm still fishing with a spinning rod I tied 4 months ago. The leader's still there. Everything's good. The knot's still good. I'm not worried about losing the fish on it. It's still that's the difference between it and any other knot. James Neal says Jacob Wheeler and others are starting to use heavier leader than their braid on their spinning setups. I've noticed farther casting distance. Is that the only advantage? Um, hmm. Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna have to give that a try. The only problem is that there might be a little well, no, because the braid's an issue if you're trying to tie a really skinny leader with the a thicker braid. So I'll have to look. I'll have to give it a try anyway. So, what would be your best advice for learning to fish ledges on Chick? Thanks for what you do. First thing on Chick, there's not a whole lot of ledges comparative to like Kentucky Lake or even Gunnersville. Gunnersville has a ton of ledges compared to Chick. So understand that there's not as many as other lakes. Um, the best advice I have is follow those ledges, and where you have a creek coming out or some type of a ditch or something coming out onto that ledge. So I don't know if I can. Okay, so you'll have the ledge running this way, or the edge of the river channel running this way, and then you have a creek that comes in. And what happens is that current goes and hits that creek, that ditch, and comes up, and it creates an eddy, an overhead eddy right on that lip. And that's my favorite ones on Chick. There's only about 6 or 7 that I know of that are like that. But dude, there's always fish on them. It's just a matter of getting them to bite. So that's the first place I start. And then there's some outside swing ledges as well. And there's a couple of ones that are kind of out of the beaten path that I don't share with GPS coordinates with anybody. I'm sure there's other people that know about it. I've got one ledge that's literally half the length of a boat, so it's probably 9 feet long, and it's always got big fish on it, maybe one or two, but you're only going to catch one off of there, and then you just leave and come back later. So, um, Ken Jacobs in the house. What's going on, brother? What's your favorite bait for this time of year? Whew. This exact time of year is a jig. But as the water gets into the 80s, which we're almost there at the high 70s right now, as the water gets in the 80s, I tend to go for a big worm. And I will throw a big worm from then until mid September, usually is when it starts to transition into more fall stuff. So I love throwing a big worm. Good gosh. I think I went through 15 or 20 bags last year. Alan Fowler asks, good evening, Gene. You probably get asked this question a lot, but what knot do you use to tie Florida braid? We just talked about that. I must be about 15 minutes behind. What's your preferred spinning rod? I've tried bait casters, but don't get the hang of it. I use a 6.6 medium action loose spinning rod right now, trying to learn. I like a little longer one. I like a 6.10 to 7.3 in that range. And I almost always use a medium for most of the little things. Now, if you're using it in lieu of a bait caster, I wouldn't be afraid to use a medium heavy for like Texas rigs and jigs with light wire hooks and spinner baits and that kind of stuff. But Justin, I'll tell you straight up. Go on my channel, look up the video where I'm teaching my nephew how to cast a bait caster. I go through a lot of tricks and stuff that can make it a lot easier for you to learn and a lot less frustrating. And then just get out in the yard and practice. Set up a bucket and practice and practice and practice with a bait caster. Get a bait caster that's somewhere in the $80 range. Okay, years ago I used to say the $50 range. Now that quality of reel is up because of inflation and what have you, up to about the $80 range, and you'll get one that you're not gonna want to throw in the trash can. So, Michael Bowles met me at Laurel Lake last year, and I believe you won that tourney. How hard is it fishing deeper, clearer lakes like Laurel? What's your preferred lake type? I went into that tournament. totally out of my element. I've never had a really good day fishing highland reservoirs that are just deep to shallow real quick. So I went with what I knew. I went with find the bait and figure out what the fish are doing, and then looking on obvious points and stuff. So that's what I did. But my favorite type of lake is one that's like that, but not so deep, with a lot more pronounced points and stuff like that. I'm an offshore angler. I love staring at my electronics and catching fish, and so that's typically what I'll do. Is I those are typically the types of lakes I like, that are just not all 100 feet to 0 feet. I want a little bit of gradual depth and flats and stuff like that. So we're gonna jump ahead just a hair, but not much. You guys are talking about the FG knot. That's funny. Sam Axe says, I sit really low in my cheap kayak. Should I forget trying to use any twitching topwater lures? I wouldn't forget trying to use them. I just would try not to get as frustrated with them. It is hard. It's hard to do it sitting down in a high seat, but you can do it. But yeah, it's just ergonomically, it's a very difficult thing to do. But yeah, if you're getting too frustrated with it, yeah, don't use any twitching baits for sure. So what's your favorite thing to throw in the morning right at safe light? A buzz bait. Not a whopper plopper. I love a squeaky, big bladed, gnarly buzz bait. The one I've been throwing lately, as for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, has been the greenfish tackle toad toter. It takes you put a horny toad on it, and I like it. I like it because when you slide a horny toad over the head of the bait, which is what it was made for, you can skip it up underneath docks. So, but yeah, I throw the snot out of it that early in the morning, especially on lakes that like Gunnersville and Chick. Good gosh, it's a lot of fun. That's funny. And I'm trying to skip a lot of these comments, but Rattlestrap says, I'm actually kind of happy I'm seeing angry reactions to the FG knot here in chat. I'm not the only one who wants to throw something trying to learn this. Yep. All I can say is practice. That's all I can say, because I had to do it too. But I'm a knot nerd too. I was a scoutmaster, so I spent a lot of years teaching kids how to tie knots. So, oh man, that's a funny thing. I went on a camp out with a bunch of other kids one year, and ran into a kid who was an Eagle Scout, and I went off on him. He didn't know any stinking knots. I'm like, what in the world? And so him and I had a little chat, and then I sat down and taught him the knots that he should have known. Somebody gave him that Eagle Scout. Anyway, let's see. Simply fishing in the house. That's funny. Elizabeth Z says, Plum Old Monster, one of my go-tos this time of year. I always have a bag of plum. That's not my go-to color, but it's pretty darn close. Mine is Tequila Sunrise is what my go-to color is. So let's see. Kelly Chambers, do you ever miss X-ray? No, I don't. And I'm not saying I hated it. I did not hate being an X-ray tech. I loved it. I loved my job. It was a really fun job, and also it was really nice being able to go to work and know that the people I'm going to be dealing with are not having a great day. And so I didn't have to guess what kind of a mood they were in, which was really cool. And so, but yeah, I loved it. I really did. But then YouTube took over my life, and such as that. It's what happens. So, best time for a topwater frog, early morning, late in the evening, unless you got a lot of really thick grass and thick cover that provides a lot of shallow shallow shade. Best time for any top water is when the fish are shallow and active. And so any reason for them to be up shallow, I'm going to throw some type of top water at them. You guys with mustaches, you ever get one that curls up and tickles your nose? That's what I've got right now. It's driving me nuts. So I'm not picking my nose. I'm just trying to get that stinking whisker to stop tickling my nose. Any tips for clear water fishing with a 10-foot visibility, smallmouth? Woo! Light line. Go spinning rod, go light line, make long cast. I used to, had a buddy of mine who we fished together for many, many years, and I would take him from where he was used to as a muddy lake and take him to a super, super clear lake, and he looked like a deer in the headlights. He's like, "What do I do?" And I'm like, I always just tell him, just make long casts. Stay back away from them more than we did, because on muddy lakes you can get right up into them and flip them, flip into docks and stuff. But yeah, it's that's the biggest thing is light line and make long cast. And fish deeper. So, 10-foot visibility, they're going to be 15, 20 feet deep on a sunny day, maybe even deeper than that. So ATL Clutch, thanks for the $5, man. I appreciate it. All you guys that donate, it really, I don't understand why you do it, but it's pretty cool. Good evening, Gene. How did you set your boat up for night tournaments? Would you have front lights on the bow? Typically I didn't. I usually just had a headlamp, and then the biggest thing is clear the deck. In most night tournaments I fished, when I was fishing out of the, fishing with the boat, is by the time it starts to get dark, you got rods out on the boat, you got stuff strewn everywhere because you've already been fishing for a couple of hours. And so we always stopped and took the time to open up the rod locker and put away the rods we were not going to be using, and pull out the buzz baits and the spinner baits and stuff like that, and then clear and clean everything up so we didn't trip as we were working our way around the boat. And then we just had a headlamp on. For safety, of course, we always had the bow lights, and I turned the back light on no matter what. Just I want people to see me anyway. So, but that was it. So, buzzbait tip for break-ins: if you have an air compressor, just sit and spin it for a few minutes until you can hear the squeak, and it will be money. Yeah, and it doesn't take long when you do that either. I like to I'll zip tie mine to a fan. Typically I'm on the road. I always have a little fan with me that goes in my rooftop tent, and I'll set it up and grab a couple of zip ties out of the back and zip tie a new buzzbait onto that fan for about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and get it going. But with an air compressor, it doesn't take long at all. You almost can wear it sucker out and break it if you're not careful. So let's see. My gripe with the FG knot, this is actually a good comment as you guys talk about the FG. My gripe with the FG knot is that I can't keep the finish knots to stay tied no matter what I do. So that's from hickory stick fishing. Let me tell you something. I had the same issue. So once you're finished with your wraps, you tie one overhand knot and you pull everything tight, and then you tie another one, and they're called half hitches is what they're called, but I'm calling it an overhand knot. You tie another one and you tie another one. Okay. So that's three. Your first one to your third one. And then you cut your fluorocarbon real close and then tie three more. But your last one is a double half hitch. Instead of running your line through the loop once, you run it through twice and pull it. Aaron Martins actually is the one that showed me that. Man, I miss him because he was always a tinkerer. But when he would talk about little things, little nuances, and what to do with your fishing line to make your knot more weedless and stuff like that, that son of a gun was a tinkerer, and I miss him mainly for that. He was a wealth of knowledge about the little details. And so, yeah, that double half hitch at the end, pull it tight and cut your line. You'll get a little bit of fray on the end of your braid, but that's about it. But I haven't yet to have a problem since I did that. So, and he went a lot further than that. His last three were double half hitches. My last one was. So, let's Let's see. Yo Bass Cat. I like that. That's a cool name. He says, lake with nasty brush down to 10 feet, steeper banks, spinning rod combo, and a caster. Thank you. Finally caught a live larger. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Usually, when I got deep brush, I look for holes in that brush, and I usually look for holes, voids in that brush on points. So you got points being key structure, and then cover on that key structure, and then a hole. I won a little kayak tournament about 3 or 4 years ago, where there was brush. There was actually old pine saplings all the way out to 15 feet deep, and I would look for points that had bare spots in those pine saplings. And I just threw a lizard and drug it in there, and every single bare spot had 4, 5, 6, 7 fish on there. I had a great day of fishing that day. So, oh, Gramps. Gramps says best time for a frog is never. There's a backstory with that. That poor soul cannot catch a cold on a hollow body frog, not even COVID on a hollow body frog. I mean, that son of a gun. Dude, we're going to get you down to Gunnersville or something. Gunnersville hasn't been great frog fishing the last couple of years, but we'll get you somewhere where you can catch one on a frog. Oh, goodness. Of course, you're going to have to set the hook like you mean it, dude. You're going to have to put your man britches on and jerk on them. So Walton Doyle, what's going on, man? What's going on? Let's see. Just use your videos to buy my first rod, reel, and tackle. $250 later, I'm ready for the summer. Oh, that's funny. That's a good comment. You gotta be careful with me. I will get you to spend your paycheck. That's for sure. Um, I don't know if you watch NASCAR, but you look a lot like Martin Truex Jr. I don't. I don't watch a lot, mainly because I always worked the weekends and I was sleeping during NASCAR, so I never became a NASCAR fan. But it's the first time I ever been told I look like Martin Truex Jr. Huh. Interesting. What's your top favorite summer baits? Walton, you know I'm an offshore angler, so it's going to be a Texas rig worm, a deep diving crankbait, a Carolina rig Cinco, um, a Texas rig big worm, and a Texas rig big worm. But that's pretty much what I throw in the summertime. But I love to throw like a deep diving crankbait, stuff like that. But that's me. I just love getting out and, like I said earlier, getting out and throwing and staring at my electronics all day. Um, let's see. Kelly Chambers carrying a knife, pepper spray, or a pew pew at sketchy lakes. Good idea, or leave that stuff at home. It's just fishing. I rarely ever carry on a lake, but a couple of times I've actually had to pull it out, and it wasn't fun. It really wasn't. Uh, the first one kind of was surprising. So I was at a sketchy boat ramp, or it wasn't really a sketchy boat ramp, but and just not one you would want to leave stuff in your truck. So I had my pistol with me, and I put it in my tackle bag, and I was fishing out of my 14-foot John boat, and was out fishing a deep flat with a roadbed running out down the middle of it. And I think it was a weekday because I was working weekends then, and dragging a Carolina rig over the roadbed catching fish. And it was pretty good. And this larger John boat came around the corner, had two teenagers in it with their shirts off, and they came over and they came right across where I was casting, which typically doesn't really tick me off. I'm okay with it. We started a little conversation. They stopped and just talking, shooting the crap. And I really didn't think much of it until they were getting a little closer until I heard one of them whisper to the other guy, does he have anything? And I was like, these dudes are about to rob me. And so I reached down in the pocket of my bag, and at that time I had a 9 millimeter. It was a silver one. I just picked it up and I placed it on top of my tackle bag. I said, "Yes, sir, I sure do." And they turned around and went the other way. And so that was crazy. That was just like one of those things where I'm like, I'm glad that I pulled that thing out of my truck. But typically, I leave it at home when I'm going to the lake. So, have you ever fished a Green River around Greensboro, about 18 miles below the dam, in a kayak? Best smallmouth creek river in the world. Or Greensburg, Green River. All right. Since you said it's the best smallmouth river in the world, you got me wanting to look it up on a map. So, what state is it in? So, Greensburg. Well, there's a lot of Greensburgs. Green River. Let's see. So, Kentucky is what I'm guessing. Yep, Kentucky. That's pretty cool. I have to check that out. Any tips for Hartwell in the summer, Darian? It's offshore humps and points, but I hate that lake in the summertime. That would, matter of fact, if I can get B-Lat on here, he would be the one to ask. But that lake has my number when it gets hot. And I've caught small spotted bass on that lake, never done really good. But I watched B-Lat wear them out, and that's where he used to guide. Well, he does when he's home too, so he guides a little bit. So Justin 540 says, you ever use the Palomar knot? And yes, I always use a Palomar knot to tie braid to my lure or my hook. But that's the only time I ever use a Palomar. Typically, I use when I'm tying fluorocarbon or mono to a hook or to a lure, I'm using an improved clinch knot. Just because I've been using it since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So yeah, definitely that's, Palomar knot works pretty good with fluorocarbon, but you got to be really careful when you're pulling it tight because you can burn that knot and weaken it. So have I tried BFS yet? No, I have not. I have a BFS rod and reel. I'm not sponsored by the company. I've got an exclusive with 13, so I'm not going to mention or anything else, but I am going to give it a try. 13 does not make a BFS reel, so I wanted I bought one that I could try out. So that's the part of the business I don't like, but I do anyway. I have to do it. I would much rather just say, "Oh, this is what I'm using," But unfortunately, I got to pay my bills and feed my family. So, and that's what sponsors help with. Good evening, Gene. Yep, I spent 2 days this past winter learning the FG knot and still have to pull up the how-to video. Got to practice a little bit. That's funny. Walton Doyle, what's going on, brother? He is a member, and I can't remember what they call it. I'm over on StreamYard, so that it doesn't give me a whole lot of information. But on YouTube, you can join the Fluke Master membership and get member perks, so which is pretty cool. So, what's your opinion and thoughts on the Bass University doing a kayak series? I like two of the hosts. One of them, I'd rather just not talk about because he's a dishonest con man. We'll put it that way. And those of you who know me and know who the three guys are, you know which one I'm talking about. So anyway. David Fields, man, thanks for the $20, brother. Now that you don't fish the hill anymore, no more flukes. You need to come visit us in Disgusta. Keep up the good work, man. I need to really, really bad. I probably should have this week instead of trying to beat my head against the wall trying to catch the fish here. So, but I won that trophy right there. That one right there came off of I won that tournament on fluke. So just so you know. Thanks, brother. Always appreciate your donation, man. That's awesome. Um, yeah, JT says make sure everyone gets signed up for the June Knucklehead. Yes, it's my last tournament. I mentioned it at the beginning. I'll mention it again at the end. So, um, have you tried BFS Rock? Okay, you already asked that. Victor Semerson, what hot sauce? What hot sauce? Um, I like Tapatio. I got 5 or 6 different kinds of hot sauce that I use, and then I have a homemade one that I do too. But it all depends on what I'm eating. I got several different kinds that I like. My favorite all time was called Jamaican Batch 114. It was a habanero sauce that was really, really good, and I haven't been able to find it for years. So it had a little tape across the top that said "Pain is good." So, let's see. Zoom Master 72, when drop shotting on a kayak, do I need to change anything as if I was in a boat? No, no, not really. I like to use a shorter rod than I do a boat. I like to use a sub 7 foot long rod. Um, and I can't give you a reason except for I just, I don't know. I just, when I'm fighting the fish on a shorter rod in a kayak, shorter spinning rod, I feel like I feel it a little bit better. I don't know. I just, I'll have to think of that the reason, but I've always done it. So, oh, what is your drop shot not if not a Palomar? I guess that would be the other thing I tie a Palomar to is a drop shot. But I haven't fished a drop shot in a couple of years. So, Riska never fished Willard Bay. John Delock says just bought my first 13 fishing rod. Love it. That's awesome, man. Let's see. Joshua Anderson, poor fella. He said he's been killing it on a wacky rig. He says I had 4 bites today, but no catches. I've been killing it on a wacky rig. I can't stand to fish a wacky rig. I try, and I always didn't last long. So let's see. I dropped the FG in favor of the Crazy Alberto and have had good success. And that's a great knot. I used to tie the Crazy Alberto before I found the FG knot. The only difference is, I'm making several thousand casts a day, and that knot will last me weeks. And so that was the biggest thing is I never worry about wearing that knot out to where it weakens. And so yeah, and that's the biggest reason I go with the FG knot. So what's my favorite topwater lures? Man, I love frogs and buzz baits, and frogs frogs have to be my favorite though. So spook, I've caught a lot of fish on a super spook junior, but that was specifically clear blueback herring lakes. So I don't really throw them that much anymore. That I do throw them during a shad spawn, but all right, there we go. Where do you usually move after the morning shallow bite goes away? I have a tough time leaving a shallow bite when it has good cover. So if I have which is ATL clutch, this is a great question because I have an old summertime video that talks about this. But what I do is if it's a really good shallow bite, I chase the shadows. And so I go looking for where the trees are close to the water and still casting a shadows, that docks make and stuff like that. If it was a really good shallow bite, if it was a average to so shallow bite, then then as the sun hits the water, I start to go deeper and I look for those especially in the summertime, I look for those long main lake points and I work my way out deeper and deeper and deeper until I find the bass. Cause a lot of times they'll just move out, kind of get out off of the deep side of that point. and get down a little bit deeper. And as the sun gets brighter and brighter, they go deeper and deeper. So I just chase them. And now that we have live scope, we can look at them, but that's just me cheating. But yeah, definitely that's typically what I do. Now with grass lakes, I'll go to the outside grass line. I'll stay in the same area where I was catching good fish, but I'll move out to the outside grass line. And especially if that grass creates a point, I'm going to move out there. So let's see. Joe Anderson, not fishing related, but a few weeks ago, you had posted about your son graduating from a welding school. Was curious if he had reached out to a local union hall for an apprenticeship. Yes. Matter of fact, he filled out the application yesterday. He's already talked to the recruiter. Matter of fact, the recruiter for the Atlanta one is a fan of mine, so he saw the post, and we got him hooked up. So he's joining the local pipe fitters union. And because he went to school, he already has one. It bumps him ahead a year. So pretty cool. Yeah. Let's see. You fish for anything else other than bass or strictly bass? I usually fish bass, but this time of the year, you reach in the back of my truck and there's two ultralight spinning rods and a cricket bucket, and I love to go catch bluegill when they're spawning. And I actually catch bluegill on a modified drop shot when they're spawning. I don't use a bobber or anything else. I just because I have a 5-second rule, dude. If you're throwing in the middle of a bluegill bed and you have a cricket tied onto a drop shot, if that thing doesn't get bit in 5 seconds, you just reel it in and make another cast. That's my 5-second rule. So, Yo Bass Cat says the info you give is top notch. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Sometimes I wonder if I know what I'm doing, but it's what's cool is when you guys come back and say, "Hey, the advice you gave me last week really did work." I'm like, "Hey, that's pretty cool." Oh man, appreciate it, man. Why is there so much hate towards Johnny Morris? I have been looking for a new boat, and a lot of forums hate on Nitro and now Rangers due to Johnny Morris. I got no clue. I know Nitro's had their issues, and they've always been thought of as the trailer park bass boat. If you guys understand what I'm trying to say, but I don't know. I know Johnny Morris is a really good guy. I personally never met him, but I have some friends that are really good friends with him, and they say he's a great dude. So I don't know. He still drives an old Toyota truck, and he writes on the dashboard and keeps notes and it's just an old beat up Toyota truck. So I don't know. Who just texted me? Okay. Church stuff. Let's see. John Delac, do you have any videos on learning how to read a topo map, especially on a fish finder or Navionics? I have an old one on the paper map, which you can kind of think about it. But as soon as I get my new Lowrances in and get everything set up, you're going to see a whole bunch more fish finder videos, and they're going to be basic stuff. And I've got some really cool ideas. So you'll see that, especially about reading maps, because that's primarily what I do. I mean, I love the fact that fish finders now can make a map for you, and I'll spend 2 or 3 days zigzagging a stinking lake trying to make maps before I'll even go fishing. So I love it. Let's see. Joe Anderson says, great. I've worked with some guys out of that local talking about the Atlanta Pipe Fitters Union. Thanks, man. I'm excited for him. I really am. I'm proud of him. So he's done all of this on his own. I'm one of those dads who, when I feel like they don't need my help, I don't give them my help anymore. I'm like, go do your thing, bro. Call me if you need me later. So, oh man. Tackle Junkie 81's in the house. What's going on, Jimmy? That's my boy. You guys get your pencil out, write down Tackle Junkie 81. He's been doing YouTube videos, not quite as long as me, but he's not as old as I am either. So, and his wife is a great Italian cook. Gosh, you got me wanting to come to Illinois, Jimmy, and eat your wife's cooking. I need to go on a diet though. Let's see. I got a sunfish with my 3/8 ounce jig with a craw in his mouth, barely could fit around it. That's awesome. So Caleb and y'all, I used to guide on a lake called Richmond Mill. It was a private 250-acre lake. This was the early days of YouTube. It was the #1 bluegill lake in the world, and I'm not kidding. Bar none, the #1 bluegill lake in the world. Of course, it had 50 feeders on the lake that fed twice a day, and it was a custom fish food made by Purina, which is now called Aquamax Largemouth. And we made giants, literally giants. I started catching them on full-size crankbaits out in the middle of the lake, and I didn't know a 1.5 pound bluegill was big. I was just like, man, let's throw it back in the lake. I'm a bass fisherman, you know. And then I caught a 2 pound bluegill, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then our biologist knew a little bit more than me, and he caught a 2 pound bluegill, posted it online, and blew up the internet. And so we started guiding bluegill, and that's when I fell in love with guiding, with finding bluegill. Not so much. I loved catching giants. I love fly fishing for them and that kind of stuff. That was really good, really cool, and it was a good privilege to do that. But I loved learning about how they bite and things like that. How the old smart ones will come up and stare at your jig or your bait for 10, 15, 20 seconds if you're using like a lure, and then you decide whether he's going to bite it or not, which is pretty cool. So, oh man, Rattlstrap, the micro chatterbait with small grubs is amazing fun on ultralight gear during bluegill and crappie spawn. That sounds like a lot of fun. My favorite thing to do is a Ned rig. And so you take it, if I'm going to use a lure, you take a Ned rig, a 1/10 ounce Ned rig, put a TRD on it, just a regular finesse TRD, throw it out past the bluegill bed, let it sink to the bottom. Now, the trick is to sit your butt down. If you're standing up in the boat, you're going to fish this too fast. Sit down, put your elbows on your knees. So you're holding your spinning rod in this hand or this hand, depending on what you do. Put your elbows on your knees, and you're literally, let me move that comment so you guys can see this. You're literally, after it hits the bottom, you're going to reel this fast on a spinning reel. So you're going super slow. And what that is, it's a constant drag, and that little jig head is moving along, dragging on the bottom, and all of a sudden it hits like a little rock or a little indention in the clay bottom, and it pops up, or it goes down into a bluegill bed, and it pops up as it comes over the other side. And you're going to catch a lot of bluegill. You're going to get a lot of bluegill bites, but you're going to catch every bass that's around that bluegill bed if you're dragging it like that. I don't know what it is about a freaking Ned rig doing that in a bluegill bed, but that's my favorite way to catch bass around the bluegill bed. But you will catch a lot of big bluegill too. See, Joe Anderson, in a 2-day tournament, you don't do well on day 1 and don't catch a limit. What's your game plan for day 2? If there's a big bass pot, I'm going for the big bass. If there's not, then I'm trying to finish the best I can. So I am going to upsize my baits a little bit, maybe slow down, maybe go find my best piece of structure, and sit there and fish it super, super slow. And so I got nothing to lose. So why am I going to bang my head against the wall trying to do something different? I'm going to go find my best area, and I'm going to just slow way down and see what happens. So ATL Clutch, what area would you start targeting around Jackson Lake if you're putting in at Reeser's Landing? Oh my goodness, where's Reeser's Landing? I haven't fished Jackson in years. Let's see. Let me look. Reeser's Landing. Good grief, man. I got an old high school friend that lives in that area, and I haven't seen him since high school, but see him on Facebook, and I know he lives there. I do not. Literally, I'm going to go fish every long point from there to the bridge, to the Barnett's Bridge. I want to start there, but I'm going to go out deep because you're looking spotted bass, and spotted bass typically don't get bait way back in the creeks. For largemouth, I'm just going to start fishing right there at Reese's Landing and go out. But they're done spawning on Jackson, I guarantee it. But my favorite place to fish is up the rivers, so that's usually where I spend most of my time. But let's see. Caleb Crunk caught 4 bass yesterday. Awesome, man. Awesome. For sure. Jim, thanks for jumping on my live deal, man. I appreciate it. If I wasn't so busy on Sundays, I'd jump on yours. Let's see. Looking for any comments I missed that were halfway decent. But anyway, guys, we're going to jump off. Don't forget the Knucklehead tournament. You got one more to join, $15. And like I said, if you're not going to fish them, donate $15 and help me pay for the Airbnb for the team, for the Flute Master fishing team, which is pretty cool. But we're going to have a whole lot of fun either way. But you guys are awesome. I really, really appreciate you joining. I'm going to jump off of here, do a little bit of work. I got some editing to do, and then I'm going to go to bed. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water, go ahead and catch some fish, and have a great day. We'll see you.